posters on poverty, on Hezbollah's financial networks. 800 killed in 10 years as communal conflict threatened Niger Delta economy. Benue Assembly Speaker decries and reps summons advocates training for lawmakers. 2027, OB said to declare presidential bid as Atiku explores the ADC alliance. Directly below the banner, we have El-Rufai alleges corruption among judges. Lawmakers seeks return of public trust. Your mandatory voting proposal unconstitutional. Falana tells the National Assembly. And lastly, on the Guardian newspaper, Navy destroys 468 illegal refineries as experts profile oil theft solution. You can see that story on newspaper 3 of the Guardian newspaper. And lastly, let's take a look at the nation. The leading story says capital market is anchoring $1 trillion economic target, says Edon. Southeast Reps caucus seeks outright cancellation of UTME. Federal government to deploy 90,000 kilometer fiber optic to boost internet connectivity. INEC recognizes Mogalu as a Labour Party candidate. Abure faction excited. Delta options out of suit on Rivers emergency rule. State rights Supreme Court. Achieving price exchange rate stability despite headwinds. That's according to the midterm review, and you can see this story on pages 2 and 3 of the Nation newspaper. And that's what we have on the front pages of the dailies. Join us after the break for a brief analysis of some of the stories. Welcome back. If you're just joining me, this is today's news on Vaga Life. My name is Dablola Okoshaki. Join me to analyze some of the stories on the front pages this morning is Mr. Dayo Akitobi. He's the publisher of Illupeju Today, Lekki Today, and Keja GRA Today. Good morning, Mr. Dayo.
Good morning, Damilola. Good morning to all of you.
Yes, thank you for joining. Now, Peter Obi, the Labour Party's 2023 presidential candidate, he has clarified his stance of forming political coalition ahead of the 2027 election. In a recent statement, Obi emphasized that his involvement in any coalition is not about securing political positions, but about addressing the press issues facing Nigeria. And we've been reading the story about him and Atiku probably forming, coming out for the presidential election, that they probably reached an agreement, but that has not been confirmed. What do you think about this?
Well, the opposition in Nigeria today is highly fragmented. And in order to have any possible potential of unseating the incumbent, there has to be some sort of collaboration, some sort of coming together. And of course, talks are always underway, although they are secret and they are hidden and they are not visible to those of us who are on the outside. But I can guarantee you that talks are ongoing among all the different splinter groups, whether it's SDP, PDP, even NNPP, Kwankwaso in Kano. Everybody's jockeying for position because remember, the first duty of politics is to get elected and get re-elected. So that's all as anybody's concerned. If you think about it, this 2025, we're still a whole 2 years away from 2027, and there's already so much dust in the air about um, possible coalitions and cooperations because there's recognition that they can't unseat the incumbent individually. So, who are the beautiful brides that are out there? Of course, you know that in the 2023 election, the second and the third were Atiku and Obi, PDP and Labour Party. And when you look at their individual scores, if you join their scores together, they actually jointly scored more than what the eventual winner actually scored. So, on the face of it, from a statistic standpoint, it makes sense for them to look at collaborating, forming a coalition, and joining together to run against the incumbent because their support, if it's still in place, actually will outstrip what the incumbent can garner himself, um, based on the 2023 results. So I don't doubt that there is some discussion going on at various levels. But politics, they'll keep it close to their chest. Peter Obi basically is playing with words. He says, I'm in a coalition against bad governance, I'm in a coalition against poverty, I'm in a coalition against hardship. So that's all highfalutin rhetoric, right? Um, he's not telling us what is really going on. But, you know, unofficial sources have said that there's an offer on the table for Atiku to run as the front runner, the presidential candidate, and Peter Obi to be his vice presidential running mate. And Atiku has said he will agree to one term only, and that he will then support Obi as his vice to now become president after his own one term. Well, the problem with that, of course, is that based on the rotational presidency, rotational power sharing that we've upheld in this country, at this moment, we're currently running 8 years for the South. So I don't see how an Atiku ticket can ever carry the day in 2027. Unless, of course, they reverse, which I don't see it happening, and Obi is the one who is running presidential candidate, and somebody else from the north, whether Atiku or anybody else, become his running mate, because Obi then has a legitimate claim that this is the South's turn and I'm from the South, so I have a legitimate right to run this ticket. But if they do it the way the rumor is spreading now, that Atiku will have the ticket and Obi will be his running mate, I think that ticket is dead in the water.
Mm. All right, but how would this proposed ticket influence voter behavior, especially Peter Obi's supporters, as some of them has viewed him as a presidential candidate instead of vice presidential candidate?
Well, it's not unusual for those who have run for president before and lost to now become a running mate to a stronger candidate. But Peter Obi ran a very strong race. Remember, I mean, he came third. He was not too far a distant third. He ran a strong race. And who knows if he had been in a different party that had more formidable and robust followership across the country, he might have even done better. So you can't have had such a strong showing and then go back to be second fiddle. That's what the Obedient movement is saying. Obedient movement is saying, no, our candidate made a very strong showing that could have actually propelled him into the number one office. He's not going to go and play second fiddle to anybody at this point, because he himself is a formidable person with a very strong following. So I don't see that. It'll kind of be like you having been a minister in a government, and then you now go and become an SA. Or it will be a step down for Peter Obi, especially because he was a strong candidate. To have gone from being a presidential candidate to being a running mate, I'm not sure I can see him in that position, and I think that's probably why. But I do see that he has to collaborate with somebody somewhere if he's running again. I don't think on his own he has what it takes to be able to beat the incumbent. So he does have to collaborate with somebody. How it's going to work out, that's what politics is all about. Politics is about deal making. This is one whereby at the stage we are in now, if you parse carefully the manifestos of all the candidates, they are no different one from the other. They just call some professors in some universities to draft some roads, or better schools, empower hospitals. Nobody has any fantastic visionary ideas that are different from what the next person is saying. Why? Because our politics is not based on ideology. Our politics does not have conservatism, it does not have liberalism, it does not have centrist movements, it does not have libertarianism. Politics, mature politics, people coalesce around common values. Our only common value in Nigeria is ethnicity, religion, and hunger. Right? Mm-hmm. So all our politicians have recognized that, and they all speak to things that are near and dear to the electorate. Is he a person that hasn't eaten and is looking for 3 meals a day, that will be concerning himself with whether your government is tax and spend for the rich, or your government is a welfareist trying to do social programs. If hunger is what is putting us together, we don't care about ideology per se. So, should abortion be legalized? Should prayer in school be allowed? Should marijuana be legalized? Should same sex marriage be allowed? These are positions that people take based on political ideology, based on your leanings. Are you conservative? Are you liberal? Are you libertarian? For example, in my street where I live, there's a fight ongoing right now about the security levy for the gate. Some people are saying freedom of association. I don't belong to your association. You can't compel me to pay this levy. And others are saying, as long as you live on this street, and the majority of us have decided we want to pay this security levy, you must pay. And that person is saying you are violating my constitutional right. So you see two opposing positions. Those are ideological positions. Which is more important? Freedom, constitutionally guaranteed freedom of association, freedom of movement, or the security of all the neighbors on the street? Which one trumps which one? That could very well come down to your political leanings. But our democracy has not matured to that level yet. Everybody coalesces around the issue of hunger, and the politicians realize that. So I don't think if you look at OBI's manifesto versus Articles and manifesto, there's any fundamental difference. They're all saying the same thing. Even the opposition parties, the party in power, go and look. It's wrapped up in fancy English, because it was written by professors in universities. So it might, on the surface, not look like it's the same thing. But if you dissect it properly, at the end of the day, there is no difference. It's six of one and half a dozen of the other. They are talking the same.
All right, let's move away from that. Family physicians, represented by Society of Family Physicians of Nigeria, they've raised the alarms about the increasing prevalence of anxiety, depression, and stress-related disorders, which often go unrecognized until they escalate the crisis. Or what do you think about these mental issues increasing in Nigeria?
There've been stories. I've seen quite a few in the last few days about suicides being committed because of financial difficulty, because of poverty. I think I read one yesterday where somebody somewhere in Nigeria killed his wife and child and killed himself because he had financial challenges. And this is so alien to our nature and to our culture that even back in the day, when we heard about it in the Western world, that people kill themselves, it used to befuddle us because I don't know any Nigerian back in the day that any situation would drive them to the point of losing hope completely to the point of wanting to take their life. Because Nigeria is beautiful from the standpoint of the fact that we have a social safety net. You are never completely alone. No matter what your circumstances, you find a friend, you find a family member, you find a church, you find a neighbor. Somebody will catch you before you fall flat. That's Nigeria. The only people you really see that are down and out completely are those who are mentally not totally with it, that are not that are suffering from mental illness. Sometimes you see them on the street because they haven't gotten help. But somebody who is rational, who is normal, in the medical sense of normal, and who's got their wits about them and some intelligence, even if they're not educated, even if they don't have a job. Our situation has never gotten to the point as it is now to where financial hardship or poverty is leading to mental illness. It's never been that bad. It's not for nothing. We are called the happiest people in the world. In the midst of grinding poverty, go to some of the poorest parts of Nigeria. You see little kids running in the street laughing. You see poor, wretched, elderly people with smiles on their faces. We have such a cheerful disposition. We have such a cheery outlook towards life that now begin to see things happening that are starting to reverse what is our God given nature. That's how God created us. We're happy people. No matter our circumstances, we're happy people. To now see that something is now turning that around to where the prevalence of anxiety, depression, suicide, and all manner of mental illness that never used to be a part of us. You're hearing things about schizophrenia, bipolar disease, um, um, psychopathic behavior, social, all manner of terminology that never used to be a part of us has suddenly become coming into the everyday lexicon. And you start to wonder what is really going on. I think part of it has to do with social media. I think social media propagates a lifestyle that's unreal and makes people have unrealistic expectations. And when their expectations don't meet their reality, I think sometimes that disappointment might be a bit hard to take because they've so wrapped themselves up in this make believe world. You know, we've gotten too wrapped up in entertainment. I've said it here before. We've gotten too wrapped up. I mean, if you look at the fervor of football, for example, people have forgotten in Nigeria football is just a game. At the end of the day, it has no socially redeeming value. Football is just a game. Those who play it recognize the fact that it's just a game. But those who follow it like with religious fervor. And so when their teams lose, it could be because they have bets on it, but most of it is just about passion. And how you know about it is the way they talk about the team in the first person. We are playing your people this week. We lost yet. Our striker messed up yesterday. If I could slap him, I would jump in the TV and slap him because our goalkeeper, they're talking about it in the first time like it's very, very personal. So I think that we've got ourselves too wrapped up in this world of inconsequential inanities, things that have no meaning, have no socially redeeming value. At the end of the day, what does football do except enrich the people who are playing it and the companies that advertise through it? But for you and me as football fans, what does it do to us intellectually, morally, socially? Does it help build our communities? Does it help enhance my intellectual capability? Does it make me better educated? What does it really do? Yeah, sports has a role to play for youth in terms of uh, giving them social skills, leadership skills, and things like that. But you have to contextualize it and put it in its place. So I think part of the problem is social media has a big part to play in how things are playing out today. I also think maybe government also needs to buckle up a little bit.
Yeah, but there's a stigma to this thing, so it stops people from going for treatment. For those out there, it's easy for you to access some of this health professionals, especially mental health professionals. But yeah, there's shortage, and also there's a stigma to it. I mean, recently there was someone with a mental issue in an area I knew. And anytime the person just smiles a little, they start shifting back. Like, what is wrong with you? It's like the sickness is coming back. So there's that little stigma. What can the government do in order to encourage the people to seek professional help.
Well, you have to look at our culture and our history. We're very superstitious people. Remember that before the colonialists came and brought Christianity and Islam and all these Western religions, that we had our own traditional religions, and they're still practiced in Nigeria today. I would say, in fact, there's a resurgence of traditional religions coming up. And in those days, um, the general perspective was that you would run mad if you were cursed. Run, mental illness was not something that occurred naturally to good people. It was a consequence of evil. And so it was a thing of shame. Generally, you'd be banished from the village or banished from the community because you've done something wrong and you've been cursed. And so you'll be walking in the wilderness naked and talking to yourself and foraging for food so that historical antecedent where we've grown up to see mental illness as an evil thing, as a bad thing, is a thing of shame. But in reality, with modern medical science, we know that anybody can suffer from mental illness, and it's not something to be ashamed of, and there is a remedy for it. So it's not easy to change centuries and centuries of a mindset. It's not easy. But I believe efforts, the sensitization from government, from medical professionals, the medical sector, the mental health sector, I believe they are starting to send out a message consistently that mental illness is not something to be ashamed of, and it's not something to be toyed with, and it's something that can be remedied. So I think there's hope.
Should we start the campaign from movies and comedies? Because I think we all many of us, like me, I got used to it from Nigerian movies where like you mentioned, after you're done, you've done something evil. and they expect that you run mad, or that's the consequence. So should we start from there?
Popular culture does help because things like movies, music, a lot of people embrace the storyline and the teachings that come from Nollywood, whether by music, by art, by culture. So that could be a good vehicle to use, but there has to be care taken so that there's consistency of message because each producer is independent. So this producer can approach it this way, this producer can approach it this way, and at the end of the day, there could be conflicting signals in the public space. So long as there's some sort of consistency to the message, you know. I remember one time, late Dora Akoyeli, when she was Minister for Information, she carved out one saying, "Good people, great nation." Good people, great nation. Trying to sell that idea that Nigeria is a good country and that its people are decent as well. Trying to sanitize our international image. So as long as there's that kind of consistency of the message in terms of what Nollywood uh, tries to propagate to help this issue, I think it'd be okay.
All right, let's move on and talk about JAM. The recent demand by Southeast Caucus in Nigeria's House of Rep for the resignation of JAM registrar Professor Luede following technical glitches during 2025. It has raised several critical issues. Or what do you think about them requesting for the resignation of the registrar, TM registrar, based on the glitches?
Well, that's what their constituents send them to Abuja to do, is to fight for them. And if they feel like there are people who are disproportionately impacted by the glitches of JAM, then they should speak up. And so I don't actually fault them for this at all, even though JAM is part of the executive and the legislators are also supposed to be working together as a government. But it's proper for them to criticize where they see lapses. And I think why the Southeast Caucus in particular is speaking of, I remember the Senate Southeast Caucus also spoke of last week about this thing, is that of the 390,000 people affected, disproportionately they came from the Southeast. So it seems as if there was a lot more problem in that particular area. And they're saying, yeah, that the remedies put in place by the JAM board are not adequate, that they give them 48 hours to come and receive the exam. The exam clashed. They're currently taking WAEC. The dates that JAM set for be taking the exam clashed with some of their WAEC papers. That the remedies they fell short of making up for JAM's lapses. And that at the end of the day, JAM is the one who caused this problem. That yeah, their chairman has apologized. But apology, see, in Nigeria, I heard this thing that when we say sorry, we think that sorry fixes things. Eh? People essentially in Nigeria use sorry to just tell you to shut up and go away. That sorry is not meaningful. The only sorry that's meaningful is the sorry that makes you whole again, that gives you redress. But sorry in Nigeria is just word of mouth. You just mouth the sorry, and as soon as it comes out of our mouth, it's gone and forgotten. But the only sorry that has meaning is the sorry that redresses the harm that was caused. So what Southeast Caucus is saying is that the JAM chairman's apology has not redressed the harm done to their constituents. And so he should resign.
All right, let's end this on a lighter note with Mr. and Mrs. this morning. And the first person speaking is Mr. Mr. says, dear, remember that I declined the offer to head our branch office in Uganda. I've accepted the offer. Next week, I'll be in Uganda. And Mrs. replied, Oni, I hope this is not because I said three of my junior brothers are coming to live with us. Wow.
In fact, Uganda is not close enough.
It's not.
Me, I will go to Alaska. Three of your brothers are coming to this very house. Okay, I'll see you later. I'm in Alaska. You can come and visit me whenever you are lonely.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
My pleasure always.
Yes, do want to like and follow us on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. You can also visit our website www.vanguardagr.com. Have a lovely Tuesday.